All right, it's time for another edition of Finnish Manga May, a project that I was very hyped up for and then immediately stalled out on. As I described before, I have this like weird psychological resistance to finishing manga I've really enjoyed. Just kind of a feeling of I don't want to let it end until I'm ready. I feel like I have to earn it somehow. I have to be able to make something of it. And basically, this Finnish Manga May was an initiative to overcome that resistance by kind of ritualizing it, making it kind of special, and making these videos, which will hopefully capture what I love so much about the series and capture my excitement and all the other emotions of heading into these final chapters. And I read the end of Beastars, and that was good. I really enjoyed making those videos. I really enjoyed seeing that series through. And then I was going to do Akagi, and the psychological resistance proved too strong, and I could not bring myself to finish Akagi. I reread the ending up until the point where I had stopped before. That was very emotional in and of itself. That was very intense and satisfying. I reread some other Fukumoto stuff kind of in preparation, but I couldn't bring myself to do it, and that's where we've arrived today. Another attempt. I've actually tried recording this video before, but hopefully this time we'll actually finish this series. The series is extremely special to me. It's one that I think influenced my love of Mahjong more than any other. Akagi as a character has just been completely cemented in my mind as like an archetype, as some of the most compelling characterization in fiction, especially combining this with the sequel series 10, of which this is actually just a spin-off, and even the legacy that continues in spin-off series like Washizu and Hero. Akagi as a character casts a long shadow over all of them, and occupies just a very unique and special place in my heart. So seeing the end of his story here is pretty powerful. Even though we know that it's not really the end, even though we know that canonically nothing can happen to him because he continues to live as an older person in 10, there's still a lot of tension here. Of how is Akagi going to get out of first the immediate jam in which I previously left him, those gamblers coming to collect the money that Akagi won from them earlier by any means necessary. And then how will he just live his life? I think this series is so incredible that they have this super genius, hyper competent character who's like the greatest gambler of all time. And they focus right here at the end on things like his poor social timing, that he doesn't really know how to exist in life, that he's just kind of a weirdo who wants to gamble and fish and can't really form proper friendships and relations, that he puts himself in danger through these habits and doesn't really know how to deal with it. So just that exploration of these other aspects of his character that are natural consequences of the focal points of his character but had never been a focal point before. It's just so fascinating. It's just, I don't know, just where will it go from here? Okay, so we're reading chapter 303. The cover is hilarious. I'll show you briefly. It looks like Akagi is leering at this woman with big boobs. And maybe he is. But I think he's just kind of doing his own thing. It's so funny to me reading, Akagi in the peaks and climaxes week by week of his match with Shizu. The intensity, the psychological depth, the great questions of life and death and what it means to be a human being being reckoned with, and every chapter starting with some woman in a bikini. Crazy. That's just the reality of being published in this magazine. There are 4 chapters left until the final chapter. We'll be reading them all today, and you'll be seeing them over the next few days. These mobsters, these Yakuza, who Akagi took to the cleaners and a gamble earlier, now coming to settle the score. Akagi trapped way out here on the pier because he's fishing. Just loves to fish. Nice of you to go fishing in the middle of the night on this isolated pier with no way to escape, all on your own. It's very quite convenient. His friend is here, but I guess it doesn't really matter. It's good enough to... as good as alone. Might I say, you're not the kind of ruffians who want to resort to violence no matter what. Even a complete stranger's death would cause a lot of trouble for us, you see. Ken, we'd like to resolve this peacefully as well. Sensible young man, aren't you, Akagi? Should be able to come to an agreement about... Fair and unfair doesn't matter right now. Osamu freaking out. Osamu being kind of like a somewhat voice of reason here. Like, he's not wrong. Akagi didn't cheat or anything. And I think this is pretty interesting that, like, throughout this whole series and throughout most of Fukumoto's series, the gamble is, like, absolute, right? The gamble is like a holy contract entered into by both parties, the outcomes of which should always be honored and accepted and everything. But in these super critical moments, in like the finales of these series, like what's happening with Kaiji right now too, it's like, oh, there is still the force of reality. These still take place in the real world. And gambling, in fact, even though we treated it like it was throughout the entire gamble, even though we played like our lives depended on it, like there was no plan B, like there was no way to get out of the consequences, in the end, there are transcendental forces that can get you out of these consequences. And I think what's going to happen here is Akagi is just going to give him the money. He wasn't doing it for the money at all. And the fact that he made a whole bunch of other people rich, I don't think that was the point either. I don't think he cares about that one lick. He wasn't doing it to steal, to get back at the Yakuza or anything. He was doing it because he likes gambling. And that's 100% of the reason why. So I think he's just going to return the money. I think that's what's going to happen. Or oh my god, he's going to throw it in the ocean. That's 1,000% more badass. I thought he would just be like, well, here, just go away then, and toss it to them. But instead he's saying, killing me will get you nothing. You will not be able to draw blood from this stone, because I am throwing all this cash into the ocean. Oh my god, I hope that's what happens. That's so badass. There's no hope for you, even if you dive into the ocean. As you can see, surrounding us on all sides, there's a dangerous rocky reef. That is what you can swim through holding a bag of money. And besides, are they going to kidnap Osamu, use him as leverage? Because that might work. Akagi, he's cold, but he's not heartless. He'll never act like it or admit it, but he has some consideration for the lives of others. Osamu is definitely not his friend or his compatriot or companion or anything like that, but he is someone that Akagi isn't going to just let die for no reason. What could he be pulling out here? Like a gun or something? But yeah, I don't think Akagi is planning on swimming. I think he's planning on throwing the money in the water. Yeah, gun. You decide. I won't be bothered, whichever choice you make. Will you make us take both your money and your life? He's gonna say no. You can just take my life if you want. Toss the money. Because he knows, as they said, they admitted, and they weren't lying, killing even a random drifter is gonna cause a lot of problems for them, right? They're gonna have to do significant work to cover that up. Which is the theme of Akagi before, that even Washizu can't get away with just murdering people wantonly. That he was in pretty precarious waters with all the people he'd killed in Washizu Mahjong. And the police were going to be coming to his door any day now, right? So similarly, we know that for these even lower level criminals who have way less power and sway, they're not just going to get away with killing Akagi. So if Kagi tosses the money, what more can they do? Are they going to just kill him out of spite? And cause so much trouble for themselves? Or you hand the money over and leave town. Those are your two options. What will you choose? And then Akagi, who has not said anything this whole time, gives us his characteristic Dying in a gamble is an ambition of mine, but it's not the same to die from complications afterwards. I think I'll pass. Damn. Kind of a throwaway line. He's just sort of fucking with them. it's just setting up, I think, the real bombshell that I still believe he's going to toss the money into the ocean. That would be pretty sweet, at least. But it really does foreshadow 10 and the tragedy of 10, which, you know, spoiler alert, I can't imagine you're watching this if you haven't already read 10, but spoiler alert, 10 ends with a very long arc about Akagi having Alzheimer's, being unable to play mahjong or otherwise gamble, and deciding to take his own life. And it's like a tragedy that he wasn't able to gamble right up until the end, that he wasn't able to die in his prime. But he knows that he can't let himself slip any further. And he ultimately succeeds in taking his own life, despite pretty much the entire rest of the cast coming in to convince him otherwise. So yeah, it's an interesting little bit of... It's not right to say foreshadowing, because 10 was written long before this, but a little bit of like side shadowing. Chronological foreshadowing, even if not publication foreshadowing. I think I'll pass. It's pointless. Dying here would be too pointless even for me. I'll give you the money. Oh, okay. I was so sure he was going to throw it in the ocean. However, this is still money I went through a lot of trouble to get. Okay, he's got some other bargain in mind. He wants to make some sort of deal. What could he want, though? Like, what does he ever want? Now, there's this theme of, like, Washizu's trying to track him down to, like, finish their gamble. Because he passed out and the white suits called it because they were freaking out that he was dying. So there wasn't really the big finale that he wanted. And maybe Akagi feels the same way. And maybe Akagi is still somehow trying to figure out a way to leverage whatever he can. But at the same time, I feel like Akagi was also just kind of like, if you're such a wimp that's so afraid of dying that your white suits call off this match and you won't just, you know, potentially die on the table, then I don't want to fight you anymore. I don't know. Let's see what he says. It wouldn't be worth it just to hand it over as easily as that. And have a bit more fun with you guys. A gomble? Time for a gomble? Yeah, he's gonna throw it in the ocean. He's gonna throw it in the motherfucking ocean. Man, I knew it. The way he stood up and walked over to the water. Oh my god, he's so based. He's so based. I love Akagi so much. And it's like, at this point, you know, it's not some great revelation that I thought, oh, he's going to throw it in the ocean. It would seem pretty obvious that he was going to throw it in the ocean. But it's still, like, just the panache of him. Just the way he explains it to them, as if it's this reasonable thing. He talks about, I'm going to have more fun with you guys and such. It just still makes it so satisfying. Why did you do that? I told you, I'm pestering you. I'm pestering you. I told you. I'm pestering you. Just like he said, down there, it's a rock reef plagued by violent waves. Swimming around in it would be really dangerous. So naturally, retrieving the bag of money I just threw in would be nigh impossible. Get thrown about as the tides rolled in and came out around you and collided with the rocks, throwing all sides of you time and time again. Probably be bleeding all over before you could even pick it up. And now this is fun too. Fukumoto always delights in these little, usually very unnecessarily expository scenes. Imagining this Yakuza diving around, getting buffeted, getting bruised and beaten up and bloody by all the reefs and waves and stuff. It's like, was that really necessary to draw this out, to make it explicit? Probably not. Is it even necessary for Akagi to... Now he's gonna continue. He just dove in with no plan at all. He's gonna make him fish for it? Nah, that would be too stupid. But basically Akagi, like, what it is Akagi is thinking of this as, I've forced you to take on a gamble. Because that's what he's all about, right? Like, he's addicted to gambling, and then he's also addicted to the feeling of putting people in these precarious situations where they have to gamble basically with their lives, right? So he's trying to set it up as a gamble. And then similarly, Fukumoto has a certain way that he wants to set up gambles where he really clearly establishes like the stakes and what'll happen if you screw up, what you're putting at risk, how dangerous it is, and then how do you formulate a plan to mitigate that and navigate that. I don't exactly want to inflict that pointless suffering on anyone either. I'm sure that job would go to some younger subordinate of yours and not to any of you anyway. I don't especially want to have someone I have no resentment towards end up like that. So that's why I'll tell you a simple way to get it back. This is so silly. What is he doing? Are they actually going to fish for it? He's actually just getting them to fish for it? We have another classic Fukumoto arrow here. Him just sliding the box. And more, it looks like he prepared this whole thing. That he foresaw this whole scenario. And it was just to put them in this stupid gamble scenario. Gambling their lives or something. Trying to fish out the bag. This fishing line is the key. I brought this line with me earlier. Put it through the handle of that duffel bag. I like that the whole time Osamu is holding a fish. This is so silly. This is the finale of your whole 30-year-long series. This most epic gamble ever depicted in manga or in any medium. This mahjong match that is once in a lifetime for the players and reader. A feat that I don't think will ever be matched in its endurance and its depth and its psychological intensity. And it's ending, or at least so far, with Akagi's silly fishing game that he came up with to fuck with them. I'm not complaining at all. I think this is just so true to Fukumoto's spirit and the way he likes to characterize people and the way he gives his characters free reign over the way the story is told and paced and depicted. Look at how happy Akagi is. He's grinning at this insane scenario he's thought up of. So if you take this line and pull it back in, you'll be able to pull the bag up to the surface. But this flimsy piece of fishing line won't be able to handle the weight of a duffel bag filled with waterlogged wads of cash. If you try to pull it in on its own, naturally the line will snap. If that happens, they're so pissed off. They're just like, what the fuck is he talking about? Why is he doing any of this? What is the difference? Why not just give us the money? Like, even if he had said, okay, I'll give you back half the money, that probably would have been fine. Even if he said, I'll give you back a third of the money. Negotiating along those lines is probably what they were predicting. They have the threat of violence, but they also have the weakness of they can't quite implement their violence. Akagi is holding the money, but maybe he doesn't really even need that much. That's the line of negotiation they were expecting. And that's the line of negotiation they were prepared for and had a game plan for. And now he's just rambling on about the dynamics of fishing to fish out this bag. And apparently he had planned this whole thing. This insane first season Yu-Gi-Oh! Type diversion for him. You really will have to dive in and get it. Someone will end up in a mineral state. Dumbass. Then that doesn't change anything. Doesn't matter if there's a wire running through the handle or not. Actually, that's not true. At the other end of the fishing line, you have this. The spool that the fishing line came in. The fuck is he on about? I don't even know where to even speculate on what he's expecting them to do. Because I can tell there's going to be like 3 more twists. In terms of, well, then you could try this. Oh, but you know what? That won't work. I get the sense that Akagi wishes he was them. He's come up with this puzzle that's so elaborate that he wishes he's the one that gets to execute it. That's what he's always looking for, is a worthy opponent that can handle his machinations. With this and a rope that's long and sturdy enough, you can get it back. Take the line and tie it to the end of the rope. That's all you need. Once you do that, this side with the stick tied to it is next. This is just like a helpful trick. This is just like in the very unlikely scenario that you're in this spot where you want to pull something back up that has a line around it, but the line isn't sturdy enough. This is how you feed a different line into the scenario. He's just teaching them all this stuff. And they're just like, what? It's like you show up and he's just giving this little lecture on clever boating tricks. Pull on that side. Get the sturdy rope to wrap around the handle of the bag. So you pull the rope back up on the other side, take the side you started with and pull it up and pull them up both at the same time. That'll let you retrieve the bag. It's so clever! What is he doing? He did all his work to throw the bag in the ocean. He presented it as if it was this dangerous gamble to throw your guy in the ocean and he's gonna get beat up and maybe they'll get it back. But then he was like, no. Don't worry about that. I'll just teach you a clever trick that I've set up as part of this scenario. What is he doing? What? Akagi is just such a quirked up dude. See? You can get it back safely, can't you? Here. Don't drop it. You don't want to make someone go in after it, do you? What the hell? What kind of game is this? And then he's just off. I think what he's going to do next is just leave. And be like, have fun. I'm off to the next town. To pull this bullshit again. It's for your comrade's sake. Is this alright? If I can pull this big of a prank on someone, I'll throw away a fortune. Let's go, Osamu. Or this is alright. He's not asking, he's telling you. This is alright. He just loves the idea of these Yakuza guys super carefully fumbling around with all these lines and ropes and stuff, cursing his name, but knowing that there's nothing they can do besides what he told them to do. That's what it comes down to. And yeah, he's just leaving. Throw that fish back, it's too small. I love this, that they added this little shot of the fish swimming around. Fukumoto is the quirked up one, really. Did he show us that just in case we were worried that the fish wasn't okay? Is that what it was? Is that what it came down to? Because he'd been holding on to it for like 10 pages? Oh my lord. Oh my lord in heaven. This is just so weird. There's nothing we can do. The only option is to do what that kid said. Ooh, one final twist. I knew there was one final twist. That wasn't quite enough twists. We had the... I threw it in the ocean. You'll have to swim to get it back. But you're gonna get all beat up and battered. That doesn't sit well with me. But I threw a fishing line around it. But the fishing line is too weak. But here's a cool trick you can do with a rope. We're up to 6 subversions of their expectations. We needed 7. We needed 7 at least. Should warn you before you start. You should wait until morning to do that job I just told you about. Try to do it while it's still night and you can't see anything. An all-important fishing line that will guide the rope through the handle could get caught on a rock and snap in 2. If that happens, someone will definitely need to make the bloody dive down to get it. Night you'll need to take turns holding it. Oh, yeah, they can't let it go either, because then the whole other side of the rope will just get pulled in. Or even if they, like, tie it to something, it'll easily get too tense and snap or whatever, because the bag is getting sloshed around in there. So his real goal is just to make them stand there all night, taking turns holding this rope. That's a good prank. That's a good prank. And it's like every element is actually necessary once you consider that this was his goal. No, median stage along this way. No partial version of this prank was good enough. It wasn't enough to just have somebody get all bruised and bloody trying to fish it out. It wasn't good enough to trick them into thinking they could haul it up and then it just snaps. It wasn't enough to make them have to do this real intricate rope trick. What he really wanted them was for them to just stand there all night trying to fish it out. That was his prank. And every element was necessary to make them do that. It's annoying, but what he said was right. Have you stand here and hold it for now. Send one of the younger ones over soon. And we need a long rope. Wait. Ooh. He's just too pissed off. It's not over yet. Okay, it's not over yet. This little arc of Akagi's prank on this small town Yakuza. It's not over yet. Alright, I'll join you in the next chapter then. It's so, man, rereading these chapters and rereading other Fukumoto stuff, like, I gotta give it up to Fukumoto Crazy so much. I'm just so impressed and amazed at their dedication to translating these very niche series with their cult followings, doing such a good job, putting so much love and time into it week after week after week. If you don't know, Fukumoto Crazy ended up dissolving for a reason that is really weird, that Sonic Crazy, the leader of the group, had this like religious epiphany. And he said, I've realized that Fukumoto series are like degenerate, and that gambling is degenerate, and there's also smoking and drinking and other hedonistic things, and that the good Lord Jesus Christ would not want me to be working on this stuff. And then I think he kind of walked back on that. I don't think he was as crazy Christian, or maybe... Because at the time I was like, well, this is weird, but you know what? It's fine. Like, you know, I'm not religious in any sense, but I understand that religion often gets people to make changes that really improve their lives, and I think pretty much any time, as long as it's obviously not insanely self-destructive, like I've decided to pick up heroin as a hobby, I think whenever people have these gigantic revelations that motivates them to significantly change their lives, that in itself I think is worth pursuing and encouraging, because that's such a rare thing to happen to someone, that I think it's like a waste if you just try to dismiss it, if you try to talk them out of it. Not that it's always good, but it's not always bad either. So when this happened, I was like, okay, like, it's not so much that I support it, but I don't want to discourage it either. You do you pursue this feeling as far as you can. But I also felt like, I don't think you're quite right. Like, I think even though Fukumoto series have gambling and somewhat glorify gambling, and they have all these other hedonistic things, they also have like a lot of really powerful moral messaging about doing what's right and standing up for each other and having strong principles and things that are more important than just pursuing your own self-interest. And that to me feels very Christian. That sort of selflessness, that sort of greater communal values, fighting against the evils that are usually huge and corporate and tyrannical, with the ingenuity and camaraderie of the good guys, you know? So I think eventually Fukumoto Crazy kind of came around. I'm looking at the blog now. He refers this time to a downward spiral into insanity, which I think is maybe not so charitable to himself. But they came back and they were working on stuff for a while, and then I think they stopped again. So, you know... Oh, they're still... Yeah, they're the ones that are working on Kaiji right now. No, they're still active. They're active enough. Anyways. Yeah, that was a lot of discussion, and we're just one chapter in. So let's keep going. There's more to read before we arrive at the end. Okay. But yeah, very nostalgic thinking about that era of Fukumoto Crazy. I hope Sonic Crazy is doing well. One of my true heroes in this whole scene of scanlating manga and allowing people all over the world to appreciate it, which I think is a very, very beautiful and worthy pastime. A worthy project. Okay, bye-bye.